Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a fine Wednesday. This is Wednesday, 17th of May, 2023. Let me say hellos to those who are here who have written in chat. I only have StreamYard open up, so hopefully it says everybody in chat. Let's see. Patty Petite Tanks, hello. It just scrolled up. I hate StreamYard sometimes. Okay, there we go. Jorge from Mexicali Fish Keepers, Linda Worth, Daniel Baez, Misa, Mark Sterlson, Joe Haney. Good evening out in the old motherland. Dennis Christensen, Cora Works, Amisa, Zoltans, and yes, Amisa, you are correct. We do have the world famous Alexander Williamson from the dark history of your aquarium. I like to call it the dark history, not the secret history. That's why I call this the dark world of fish keeping. Had nothing to do with dark world, had nothing to do with the bad side of fish keeping. Just has to do with that's what I've nicknamed Alexander's channel, the dark history. It just sounds better than the secret history.
It is more mysterious. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine. I'm glad you can get up this morning and,
Oh, yeah.
2 minutes late, but that's okay. I expect you about 10 minutes late.
Yeah. I'm 10 minutes early to being late. That's what it is. Yeah.
Hello, Yellowstone. Hey, and we got the little man with long hair, the young kid who's 12 years old looking, but he's like 45 in real life. How you doing, Ian, from Atkins Nature's Aquarium? Then we got Jimmy P. Not Jimmy P. Yeah, Jimmy P. I don't know why I kind of zoned on that. Jimmy P's Aquariums and Ariums.
And Ariums.
Ariums, yeah. That's like
all sorts of Ariums.
Yeah, like it, you never know.
Ripariums, vivariums.
That's right. Terrariums, you name it.
Yeah.
Anything with air, he's number one.
There we go.
Yep.
So speaking of darkness, can I share something really quick?
You can share anything within reason. I don't know.
Well, yeah, no, I'll be very.
You're thinking of darkness. That what you're gonna show the dark web? Gonna share the dark web?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna be doing that.
Okay.
Hold on. No, let me pull it up real quick. And all right, let's see if this works.
Hey, Lukey Wang, how you doing this morning? So Luke will be our guest on the California Crew on Saturday. He'll be talking about fin dig.
Let me see.
You want to fin dig, Alex?
I should be, yeah. I think I'm going with Kenny. So
see your favorite person there?
Kenny or Luke? Oh, see, yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I'm not going to talk to him. He's threatened to
beat you up.
Yes, but I would love that. I mean, I would totally just smile and take one right on the chin and hope lots of people are watching.
Get him banned from the U.S.
Yeah.
So that's the dark world. So
yeah.
If I can add that to the stream, I've added it to the stream.
Okay, so this is really exciting to me and maybe about 10 other people in the world. But this is a new discovery. Now, they have 58 species discovered in the Western Ghats Mountains of India.
Yep.
And they found basically an aquifer that goes for about 180 miles. And they don't know to what extent it's not mapped, but it's connected. And so people will be digging wells all through the Kerala region and the Western Ghat region of India, down in the southern, kind of just by near Goa and some of those other cities. But they keep finding new little species, and they just published another species discovered there. And they found a total in all the caves in India, 248 species, I believe I read this morning. 58 of them are catfish, and this is one of them that they believe has been in those aquifers for a very, very, very long time. And it's only about a centimeter long. But it is translucent, so you can see the blood in it. It has no eyes, nor does it even have any vestigial eyes, really. It has holes in its skull, which is a cartilaginous skull, apparently, and there's the divots for the eyes, but there's no exterior sensory tissue that looks like eyes at all. That's just the way the light's shining on the skull there that you can see through. And they've discovered this fish, but apparently it puts everything we know kind of on its head, about how many catfish and how many fish there may be still underground around the world. They recently also discovered some in Russia, some in Lake Baikal, the deepest lake in the world. And I thought, speaking of darkness, that was a
well,
fitting.
would be good, yeah.
It's pretty ugly little fish, in my opinion.
Well,
but
I
it's
think
interesting.
I'm in the same ilk as coral. I would like to have that fish in my tank.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice looking little fish, but at a centimeter long, a half inch long, that's
it's tiny.
That's tiny, yeah. Who knows what's in our aquifers? I know when I was doing my PhD, a paper came out where they were drilling wells in the Midwest, and all of a sudden, all these insects appeared out of the wellheads. And these larval insects were actually living in the interstitial spaces of the sand grains, 2, 3, 500 feet below ground. How did they get there? How what's the whole process of the evolutionary process of these creatures living in these interstitial spaces, and who knows how long they've been there?
Well, right, and they've also, they've documented in Australia in the opal mines there, 2-3 miles down, there's bacteria in the core soil samples, and archaea, mostly archaea actually. But I mean, how did it get there? What's it doing? Same kind of question. It's hope for if the Earth ever gets nailed by a giant, comet or something, that maybe they could evolve into something eventually again.
Well, we got, at least fish will be left. So I want to ask you something I've never asked you. You probably have said this on your stream. If everybody don't know, this is Alex Williamson from The Secret History Hiding in Your Aquarium. He has 47.6 thousand followers.
Wow, is that many now?
Yeah,
47.6
thousand, not just 47.6. Kind of hard to have a 0.6 person, but so your channel does a lot of science.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it pseudoscience. That was a joke.
No, some of it is.
Well, it depends on which streams you're talking about at the time. Hola, Fernandito, ¿cómo está? And so what led to your, to your interest in science in general, but fish biology science?
I guess, I've always loved nature, all sorts of nature. I've had this draw to it in the darkest times of my life, when depression or sadness or trauma, things going on, I could always find refuge just going to take a walk alongside a creek or looking off a dock into the water and looking down at fish, watching animals do their thing. It takes me outside myself. and makes me think about how the world's connected.
Mhm.
And the biggest, I've had addictions and things over the years. I was a heroin and alcohol user for 10 years. And when I quit all that, it's been 15 years since I touched alcohol. But when I quit all that, I had to find something to replace all that kind of thing. And I have to say, what's better than any of those highs is the high of when you have studied something years ago and you understood it really well, but maybe there were some loose ends that they just don't have answers to, like uh, magnetism and some of the details of that, for instance. Like we
Mhm.
get how it works, but we
Yeah.
don't. Yeah. So then when you're just going about your business and you learn something 10 years later, and it fills in the blank like a key in a lock, and it just matches, and it might be something that you're learning about fixing a car or something, and you hear how uh like disc brakes work or something like that, and you're like, all of a sudden it clicks and you put these pieces together. Those are the little things that I feel like the more of this web of information, and you've got maybe science over here and practical stuff here and emotional stuff here, and um, I love when you find something that clicks and that is overarching and allows bunches of pieces of what to suddenly line up and make sense. And I feel like that's the most exciting like rush for me
Mhm.
emotionally, and I wanted to share that. I wanted it, memorizing facts or things like that is boring to most people, and to me in a lot of ways. And I will not remember, like, someone tells me their phone number, I won't remember that.
Yeah.
I won't even remember their name half the time if I just meet them once. Um, but if there's a story, I'll remember the whole story. And if there's some specific date or something, I'll remember that. uh, I may remember the date and the grams that something weighed, or the manifest of a ship, and how many units of paradise fish came in 1869 or whatever. Yet I can't remember when my wife says go get milk and this and this. So it's hard to say why certain things just kind of are like little jewels in my mind that I latch onto. But for some reason I love the natural world, and being able to take an example from our aquariums in our house, and you observe something. Maybe you see that for instance, fish are shiny, and most people would just leave it at that.
Mhm.
But then, get a microscope and you look at the scales underneath a microscope, and you see that each of the iridophores, the cells, they have a prism with crystals in it. And around that, there's protoplasm that's suspending these crystals. And it's like, well, how does that form naturally? How did that evolve? And then you start looking into, for instance, optics and how light scatters, and um, how light isn't even, colors of things aren't a real thing. It's all just in our head. And other animals see different wavelengths in
Yeah.
different ways. Um, or the thought that when you see something that's blue, it's actually absorbing all the colors of light but the
But
blue,
blue. Yep.
and blue is reflecting off of it. So its true nature is everything but blue, really. It's just that's all it's shining back to us, and that's how we perceive the world. And I wanted to share these things that to me are like, I get excited when I learn something new like that. Every day I learn something, and I just want to like run outside and tell the first person I see, like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you have your own channel with the YouTube, then it's a lot different than like when I've done student teaching and things like that. When I was doing archaeology and anthropology, because that was very regimented, and you kind of had to give the same rundown each time, which I'm sure you can switch up and have fun with. I mean, you do. I'm sure you have to do some of that with some of the classes you teach. But I didn't. I like the channel because I don't ever have to, if I don't want to, get into a rut of the same thing that I've already done. But yeah, I don't know. That was kind of a runaround answer, but I feel like it describes like my obsession with learning new things. The other thing is I've really been disappointed by channels other than yours. And
no. I appreciate it. We don't use my name in my channel.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just saying that people who are bringing in, I mean, experience is great, and people who are in the hobby and they may not be able to explain scientifically what they're doing, but they've figured something out, or they've noted something of how to get something to spawn or whatnot, or adding some, crushed coral or laterite or whatever it may be. I find it really interesting, though, when we can then document it scientifically and it's replicatable, and we can verify that. And I just feel like there's such a lack of putting citations or kind of putting your money where your mouth is when it comes to, well, you just said. Sorry, my computer went dark. I don't know what happened to the screen here.
It's the dark world. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But a lot of channels just say stuff and you're just supposed to assume that it's true. And a lot of it is, but there's also 5 other truths.
Yeah.
So I like to provide the info so people can go there and go look at it themselves and decide if I even interpreted it right,
Yeah.
And I felt like there's a big lack of that. And I feel like the scientific community and the actual people like yourself who have spent their life involved in academia, they kind of have to take their hat off from the academic world and then cross over to the hobbyist side of things. And I kind of wanted to say, hey, I don't have a PhD in anything. I don't have any ichthyology degrees, but I can still participate in that endeavor because it's now public. You can go online, you can pull the paper, you can say, here's the people that reviewed it, here's somebody, and then you can track down the other papers they've done. I mean, it's a great way to continue learning about more things. And I just felt like I didn't see any channels doing that. And in our day and age, there's so much information that people just are supposed to believe because they hear it 5 times. And politicians operate that way, where they just say the same simple message over and over and over until it becomes the truth. And that's not how the world works. It's not true just because you say it. So I wanted to try to at least be a little bit, not all the time, but a little bit of a voice and a bridge of the gap between academia and hobbyists. And I mean, also to point out, like you have many times, that sometimes hobbyists may actually understand some fundamental process more than an academic person, if that's not their specialty or something. So I think we can all learn from each other. There's no like right or wrong way to do a lot of these things, but we should at least have access to the information of what's going on.
Yeah. So if there's one place you want to collect, or not necessarily collect to take, but to collect to observe fishes in their natural habitat, where would that be?
Probably either the Western Ghats, just because it's such an ancient place where continental forces and mountains and things have driven these like lost worlds, kind of all these pockets together. Or I would love to go to either Borneo or Papua New Guinea too. Any of those places where you get like an extreme mountain and then a valley and then a river that runs through all of it. And
Yeah.
so, but I do love places where you look at it and you would think there's no way there's
Mhm.
fish there. That is a puddle in the forest, and there's not a river for a mile in any direction. And
Yeah.
you put your net in, and there's 5 kinds of little beautiful
Yeah.
jewels in there. So that's what I'd probably say. Yeah.
And is there a bucket list fish in each of those, or is it just the environment itself?
Before I die, I would love to find a fish that nobody's found before.
Yeah.
It seems pretty doable. Especially if you're willing to like learn swamp eels or
Yeah.
uh, something that nobody else wants to catalog.
That's true. Yeah.
By the way, this month alone, they discovered 6 more swamp eel-ish type fish in South America. I've got little clips, but we don't need to share them. They all look identical. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so there's it would be really exciting though to go out to find a fish and then to ask around and have everyone scratch their head and say, I don't know what that
Yeah.
is. That would be pretty exhilarating. Yeah, I'd like that's probably the top of my list of something to have happen. But other than that, I really, really love Batis, scarlet, like it started with
Yeah.
the scarlet Batis, but now there's, 38 some Batis species. And I just find them almost like a little cichlid, the way they behave sometimes,
Mhm.
and their colors and their habitat's pretty extreme. So those, I've been getting into wild bettas more and more. So those are all really high up there with fish I'd like to see. I really like the labyrinth fish in general. So yeah, I like things that can live in extreme marginal environments. It's always amazing the way they've overcome problems, so to speak, evolutionarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, they have to live in conditions that most other fish can't survive in.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the lungfish. It's an ancient group of fish, and it survives in areas that a lot of fish can't survive.
Okay, I have something to share with you right now because it happens to be. I don't know why I threw it in the folder of, hey, maybe this is stuff we'll talk about, but I did, and you might get a kick out of it. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. Okay. How do I get that to open now?
So if anybody has any questions for Alexander here, please put it in the chat. We'll ask it. I know he's an open book on most everything.
Yep. There's nothing I'm shy about. I'll try to hold my tongue on certain things just for decency, but other than that, I don't really. Okay. Here you go.
Yep, let me add it. Okay. I'm going to pull it full. Okay.
Okay. So Chase Brownstein, who I follow, ichthyologist, he was working on this. And if you note here, this is how ancient lungfish are. This is a new paper that just came out last week. And those are the continents when they were still stuck together 180 million years ago, when South America was wedged into the, West African continent. You can see right there. And then you can see as they're drifting apart. And if it has a cross near the name in scientific literature, usually that means, that it's no longer in existence. It's a fossil species. But some of these species, you look back here, this is millions of years. That's 100 million years. That's a Cretaceous. And we've got species that are back into the 50 million year old, species here in the lungfish, which is pretty darn wild. or 0.8. I mean, all these species are very, very old.
Yeah,
And
the extant ones are at least a million, came to
yeah,
be over about 1 million years ago. So
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I just this paper was published and it was talking about how they kind of all originated from a single origin, but that was
mhm.
400 million years ago, and now they've
you know
uh,
when
spread out.
I always ask my students, what's what's the characteristics of fish? What would be one of the ancient characteristics of a fish? And no one ever thinks it's lungs. Lungs developed really early on in the evolution of fish, and so it's a very ancient characteristic.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that we don't think about necessarily, but that we are biologically still sharing.
Yeah, yeah,
Serotonergic and dopamine pathways in the brain and in neural networks, from our gut, that still works the same.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah.
I guess if it's not broken, don't fix it. So
Exactly. That's how evolution works. I mean,
yeah.
and we're not going to have, audience. We're not going to have a debate on evolution, versus other things. That's
There is
neither
no
here nor there.
debate.
Yeah, there's no debate. In my mind, but I will accept that other people can be wrong. So a couple questions. One from Zoltan. Do you know how many different species of white cloud mountain minnows there are out there? Only two.
There's the Vietnamese one, and then there's the Tan's minnow that was discovered originally by a Boy Scout in China.
Yep.
And his name was Tan.
Yep.
And then they found a population on the islands off of Vietnam that has a similar lineage. But it kind of begs the question, with that big of a spread. I mean, I think it's something like 700 kilometers or 350 miles apart. Well, they didn't fly, so
yeah.
Is there some lost lineage that happened, or is something else there? But there was talk recently. I was talking to Professor Zhang out of Hong Kong University's ichthyology department, University of Hong Kong, I believe it's called. And he was saying that they think they have perhaps another species that they might put not in the same genus, but the ordering right above that. So
So Misa wants to know what was your first fish?
A goldfish named Elvis. I threw a penny into a shot glass from a carnival when I was 5 or 6, and they gave me the fish. And this was when you could get fish for a penny.
Yeah.
So, I mean, actually, I think it might have been a quarter that I threw in. It was probably a quarter at a carnival. And then, they keep the quarter and they give you the fish that's worth a penny or whatever. And then my mom was real mad that they gave me the fish, basically. And so we took it home. We kept it in a bowl, like a literal old school fish bowl, no plants, no substrate or anything. Poor guy. He lived for 4 or 5 years like that. And my mom would scrub the bowl because I wouldn't, because I was a little kid and I was lazy. But she would scrub the bowl with soap and water. I mean, it was never cycled.
Yeah.
So
just enough bacteria to start the nitrogen cycle. Ammonia is probably out of this world, and
carp, whatever.
And so Misa wants to know, what fish would you never keep again?
Maybe a goldfish. No, I'm prejudiced against goldfish. A common pleco I would never keep again. There's too many interesting ones, and they're just like poop factories, and they don't do the job that everyone thinks they do on cleaning and stuff.
And they get big.
And
People
they
don't
get
realize,
big.
yeah.
Yeah. So I
But
don't really
it sometimes it's hard, especially for people who don't know plecos well. It's hard, especially when you're young, to be able to spot a common pleco if a pet store just says pleco.
Yeah.
A lot of plecos look very similar when they're young,
Hmm.
and so they come in as mixed batches of plecos, and you may happen to get the one that's just the common pleco that is the scourge of the pet trade, and in many environments now,
Yeah.
people
When I
release the plecos.
Well, when I was in Florida last, like a week and a half ago, there was a pleco that easily 3 feet long.
Yep.
I have no idea what kind it was, but I was on a little footbridge, like boardwalk, looking down, and it was the biggest pleco I've ever seen in my life. And it was just out in a state park. I was watching an alligator from above, and they were all going wild over something the alligator was eating, and there were bluegills and all these other fish
Mhm.
there. But this pleco came up, and I was just blown away by. I was like, I did not know they got
Yeah.
that big.
Yeah. And same with like Adonis plecos. When they're young, they're black with white spots.
Oh yeah,
When
yeah,
they're adults, they're black, 2 feet long. They lose that the beauty, so to speak, the nice looking, white spotted pleco.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so those, even though they're really nice, it's not something you really want to keep in the hobby per se.
No, definitely not. Yeah, there are some kind of pretty uh common plecos, just collection point, like
Yeah.
phenotypic variation, I guess. But the especially like the rubber lip ones and stuff, that they're just big black plecos. Like, yeah, they're just not appealing to me at all anymore. In fact, I don't have any that I'm breeding right now, which is a first for the last 8 years. I mean, until a year ago, I had 3 or 4 colonies of different things going, and I don't have any right now. I still love, like, I don't know how you say it, whether it's Peclotia or Peclodia or what, but
Picoltia.
is that how you
Picoltia.
say it? Picoltia?
Picoltia. Yeah.
Okay. So like the leopard frog
Yeah.
plecos and the dwarf imperial
Yeah.
pleco and stuff like that. I love those, and they're meat eaters too. They're
Mhm.
omnivorous, but mostly they like meat if they can find it, detrivore meat. Um, those are just really fascinating to me still, and I think hopefully I'll keep a group of those again soon. But yeah. Uh, I'm just looking at the comments too.
So
I don't know.
Alacon made a comment about my ancientness, but he also said he maybe a third one,
Yeah,
Tenictes thacobiensis.
yeah. So what's his name? His last name is Zhang. I'm trying to think of his first name, but he's the guy who him and I mean I know that these names are extremely common out of Han Chinese people, but
Yeah.
Wang and Zhang and then Chen. They're always the three on papers. When you look at like cyprinids and cypriniform type fish out of China and the bordering southern provinces, Macau and Taiwan and stuff. Um, but they are prolific. I don't know that if they just have a million grad students bringing them stuff or how that works. I'm a little suspect because of maybe the way Chinese universities work. I think they kind of get the credit as the elder
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
program. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's always et al. And there's like 50
Yeah.
names. But I mean, they are knowledgeable. I've emailed all three of those gentlemen, and they will send me links to a million things, which was very,
Mhm.
very kind of them to do. So, but yeah, the other one that they were talking about, I can't remember what what the designation was, but I think it was basically, in my mind, there's discovering a new species and then there's splitting
Yeah.
hairs. And
Yeah.
I think that one's more of a splitting hairs type thing, if I recall. But
Yeah, there, in taxonomy, there's two groups of people, what we call the lumpers, which lump lots of fish together into one species, and then the splitters who take one minute detail and said, okay, that's a new species. So it's
right.
somewhere in between, but that's why people say, oh, how many species of fish out there? Well, depends on what group you belong to.
Right.
Conservative, 35,000 named species of fish.
Yeah.
Conservative number. But like you say, they're discovering new species every day around the world.
Yeah, I mean, we've averaged 210 is the average number for
Yep.
the last decade of freshwater. That's truly new species. That's
Yeah.
not cutting up old groups. Now that Tanichthyes, I don't know how to say that for sure, but Thacobaensis, that is a really pretty fish. That's one of the Vietnamese ones, and it does look quite different to me.
Mhm.
So I think it could be a third or rather second Vietnamese group.
Yeah.
But genetically, apparently, it's pretty darn close to the other one. It's just phenotypically, it looks different because it's been in a different body of water off the coast of Vietnam or whatever. But if you can get your hands on those, get some. I mean, I'd love to see those. I've never seen them.
And that's the problem with some of these that they describe. They haven't made it into the hobby yet.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows if they will ever make it to the hobby. So Alishan must be a
Oh yeah. There's another one too now.
Yeah.
Well, they know more than me then, because
yeah.
Forget what I said. Let's see.
He must be a white cloud expert.
Well, yeah, and I can definitely be out of date or wrong on my info. That's for sure. So, I'm learning right now. I'm gonna punch in that information. Oh boy, they sure look similar though.
Pull up a photo. Let's see what.
Yeah.
You can pull up a photo.
Yep. Let's see. StreamYard, present, screen share. I wish StreamYard made this a little more easy. So.
Okay, so.
That's a pretty darn similar to a white cloud.
Yeah.
That's different looking color wise, but the structure is pretty darn similar. Yeah. Interesting though. Now that's beautiful. Yeah. But again, here's, the original one, the picture of it. Pretty darn similar. Okay, here's the new species. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this page, but I'm breaking it out. And okay, so there's actually there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new. Okay, let me share this window instead. Hold on. So I'm very, very, very wrong with what I said about there only being a couple kinds of those, apparently. Apparently there are more than that. Because here, if we look at this, let me scroll down. There's a picture of all of the, where was it? There's like F. Here we go. Here's the species here. So you got, are you seeing those, Doc?
Yeah. Look pretty, some look pretty similar to each other. Like number A and C, if you put them,
Yeah. Again, genetically, these days I like to go by genetics if they
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
but live specimens from 6 localities in southern China. So those are the Chinese ones, and then they had a Vietnamese one too. Where'd it go? So these are the older ones, and then the new one with it, the Alba Ventris.
Hmm.
That does look pretty different, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one there. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I will admit that I was wrong.
Mark this down in your calendar today.
Right.
10:41 Pacific time, 17th of May, 2023. Alexander Williamson admits he's wrong. Man,
right.
we got history in the making on my channel.
That's the dark history right there.
That's the dark history of Alexander Williamson.
Now,
Always correct.
When I try to say when I say something that obviously is wrong or even just kind of misleading, I try to always put it as a comment under the video. I'll pull the video if it's like way off or something. But yeah, that's interesting though, Alishon. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I'd never seen any of those other species. So yeah.
Yeah, you notice I left. I was trying to find a book because I was, people have one person to blame for me being on YouTube, and that is you. You brought me on your channel.
Oh yeah,
very first time on YouTube, and that's then I started watching people's YouTube channels. Before that, that was like 2 or 3 years ago. I had no idea there were YouTube fish channels. Never even knew that. And then you brought me up one day and brought me up another time and said, "Hey, I might want to do this."
Well, yeah, I remember I was like, "Would you do a necropsy for me?"
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, no one watched it, but that was one of my favorite guests, things that we've done on the show. The people who did watch it loved it, but it was just it was a bridge too far for your average viewer.
Yeah, I don't know if it was because of the necropsy or because of me, or I'm not sure. I should have taken that as a hint.
It's too like similar to the dissecting a frog in high school or something. I think. People don't want to.
But, a lot of hobbyists don't know what the inside of their fish look like. That's
right, and it's important if you're trying to, or if you see like a prolapse something going on. Like, especially with big fish. If you're keeping big cichlids and stuff, there's a good chance you might run into some of those anatomy features that you would never tell.
If it was, if you have a dead fish and people aren't sure what to feed it, you look at their gut, look at their insides. That tells you really everything you need to know about what it can eat, what it should eat. So it's something important that, for the most part, we know what our fish should eat. But when new fish, come into the hobby, we just assume they're just like the rest of the group or so, and sometimes they're not.
Right.
You can have herbivorous. Like the Uraru fernandezi from Venezuela.
Oh yeah.
That's a herbivorous, totally herbivorous fish. Unless you know that it's herbivorous, many people want to feed them.
They'll rip up your plants.
Yeah. When I first got mine from Venezuela, I had no idea. I just assumed they were like a normal cichlid. Even because I fed my normal Uraru just normal flakes and pellets and things. Never even thinking about the fact that they're herbivorous. So, yeah.
Hey, Barbara. I see Barbara Jackson just.
Hey, Barbara.
Us.
Big Cat's here.
Big Cat.
Let's
Joe
see.
Haney. Yeah.
Joe Haney from he's been here. He was across the pond there.
All right.
It's about 7 o'clock in the evening for him. He's drinking his evening tea,
Tea,
or
Earl
maybe some
Grey.
scotch, or who knows what he's drinking.
Yeah. Yeah, there was an interesting subject that I wanted to cover, and I went into it last night during a live stream a little bit, but then I backed off because I could sense nobody's going to care about this. Like there might be 3 or 4 people that are overjoyed that I talk about it, and nobody else. Like I know Rebecca Bentley, she would be all about it.
Yeah,
but she's a taxonomist for Pleco, or I don't know what. Laura Caird. Yeah. But it was about the non-iridophoric cells of the interior organs of fish, and how they actually use their interior organs on translucent fish for active camouflage, and also for mating, and how their swim bladder, their actual bladder, their liver, their kidney, they have this, and what we would call the silver connective tissue. Like if you've ever gutted a mammal, there's
the
a silver,
mesentery.
the silver skin kind of stuff. Well, that has evolved in a lot of the translucent fish to reflect UV light, to only broadcast like the blue wavelength or the green or whatever it may be. But now they're kind of looking at that, and it's kind of interesting that natural selection has worked internally, not just on the outside. There's all these layers to a fish's appearance, and I just found it kind of interesting because the structure at a cellular level is not at all. It's not pigment. It's not crystals like iridophores, and it's actually these tubes, and it's almost like carbon nanotubules, where apparently it's the way light reflects down a tube when you look at it small enough. But now they're learning all sorts of stuff about that right now, and it happens to be a study looking at how they could use it for fiber optic information transfer. But that's the stuff that's exciting to me, is like when you hear that they were studying fiber optic cables, and yet the film, or the layer of tissue on a swim bladder on a tetra is somehow going to double the bandwidth of what we can put down a fiber optic line or something. Like, that's amazing to me. So,
well, we look at the ancient knights. The clothing they were, the armor were overlapping scales like a fish scale. So, and that's, it's hard to penetrate that because it kind of you get stuck and it goes down. So we can learn a lot from fish. Bernoulli's principle for airplanes, how they fly. I mean, that's a shark's fin. Their pectoral fin sticking out. That's exactly what's happening. I don't mean to get all exotic and scientific for you guys. It's the idea that air pressure gets lower as the air speeds up, so it causes lift in the wings or the fins. So one of
the videos I made that I worked on pretty hard, and it did one of the worst of any of my videos, was the Fibonacci sequence, and how pine cones and sunflower seeds and fish scales
and snail perculum, snail shells,
and rods and cones in the eye, the back of the eye, how they're all arranged in hexagonal, and the Fibonacci sequence numbers. I was so excited about it, but it was no one else was.
I thought you were on magic mushrooms or something.
I think so. Yeah. I have one more thing to show you.
No problem.
Hold on, let me
show us all.
Yeah, let's see here. I thought you'd like this one in particular. let's see here.
Okay, let me add that to the stream. And okay. Oh, nice. Stickleback.
Yeah, there's a 9 spiner, I think.
Yeah,
I didn't count it,
from
but
Korea.
yeah. But I was like, holy smokes, that's a good looking one.
I didn't know there
I
was
did not
sticklebacks
either.
in Korea.
I did not either.
Look at that black and blue. That's a beautiful fish.
Isn't it? I
Yeah.
thought you'd be one of the few people in my life that would also be excited to see that.
That's a nice looking fish.
The eye being all yellow, like
Yep.
a snake's eye with the band through it, and then it's still got that classic stickleback tail.
Yeah, that shape. Yeah.
It looks like it doesn't have any armor though, which is interesting.
No, so it's some don't, especially if they've evolved in a pretty much predator-free situation.
Right.
So.
But it's got decent spikes on it, which is interesting.
Yep.
But they almost look decorative. Like they've got blue on them, which is interesting. I can attest though that they're not pelvic, the pectoral fin, man, there's a sharp spike on those things, man.
Oh,
but yeah,
anybody have any of those?
Yeah,
I will buy them on the spot. I mean, those are that's probably the nicest looking stickleback I've ever seen. So the males do get bright red on the belly, but something like that's a beautiful looking fish.
Yeah, and I was wondering, is that melanistic or is that just the phenotype of Korean Peninsula? I don't know.
I'm gonna have to do some investigation on that fish. Look at look at its geographic range to see if it's found anything beyond the Korean Peninsula.
I mean, I would almost certainly assume so, but there is the case where like in Greenland and in northern Canada, there's those weird populations where there's like it's basically a separate species now where they've been separated.
Coral could be warning colorations, but blue is one of those colors that are actually very rare in nature.
Extremely.
So that blue is one of the normal color warning colors. So but it's the fact that it's blue that's rare. So
well, I mean, a lot of people have probably heard this tidbit now because it's gone around the internet a few times, but blue is the last color word to be added to most languages. Like the Greeks in ancient Greek, they didn't have a word for blue. They would say that it was wine colored or the color of the ocean or the color of the sky. And it was the reflectivity or the lightness or darkness of the blue that they would talk about. But a lot of cultures, tribal cultures and things, don't have words for it because they would simply refer to the thing as, well, it's the color of that thing that we all know, or look up, it's the color of the sky. But it's hard because like water and the sky aren't really blue. They change, And so perception wise, there aren't that many things that aren't man-made that stay blue, that are not just reflecting a glimmer of blue or whatever. And like for Europe, ancient Europe and the Middle East, they had to get, like the Egyptians, they got all their blue pigment. They got all that azure blue from Afghanistan. So they had trade networks. I mean, and that's why only pharaohs and very, very wealthy people had access to it. Kind of interesting. And then the color orange, that's another one that that was not a word. Purple and orange are another set of colors that they get named last along with blue for one reason or another, whereas red, black, and green are the ones that get named very first linguistically when they go back and they plot it out. Yeah. Let's see. Silver Creek. Those are your favorite colors. What are you, a Broncos fan or something?
So Russian has a lot of different colors for blue.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting where we decide what's a color. Like is
Yeah,
pink
yeah, yeah,
is pink a color? Is
yeah,
fuchsia a color? Or is that just red with a little white or a
yeah.
little blue in it,
Light red,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all a continuum. It's all and it's funny though, like that's another one of those things, speaking of teaching science or learning, uh people will get so frustrated at that concept that it's a continuum. For some reason, people really don't like continuums, I feel like.
no, they won't.
Uh,
It's either that or
black and
that.
white, yeah.
Yeah,
But the idea that like the Kung San people, the Bush people, they have like 140 words for green, and for red they've got a ton of words because it all has to do with like, is it ripe? Is it the plant that we can get water from the roots
hmm
from? And it is very, very specific. They've sat down and they've done studies, and your average, they don't have any special ability they've evolved, but just from using it, your average Kalahari bushman that has spent their life out in the bush, they can, if they give them a set of tiles that are all subtly different hues of green, they
hmm
can put them in order in like a minute, whereas a Western
yeah,
person who's grown
yeah,
up, we'll put them in order and they'll be mostly like 30% wrong,
yeah,
and it'll take us like 5 minutes.
yeah.
But to
And we have
them,
to compare. We have to look at it. Oh no, that one, that it's like an
yes,
eye test. Is it
yeah,
one or is it two?
yeah.
We have to go back and forth. Yep.
But to especially to hunting and gathering people, those kind of things are like as clear as night and day, and they may even have a word for each thing, whereas in our society we wouldn't even know there's a difference. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so those kind of things always amaze me when you can open up someone's mind, or at least get them to see like that there's a completely different way of perceiving or understanding things, or like how when you overlay what UV light looks like on flowers, what insects see, what bees see on the petals of a flower versus visual light and things like that. Um, there's a really good lecture, even though the guy's kind of a pretentious uh, jerk sometimes, but uh, and everybody knows him because of memetics. He came up with that. But Richard Dawkins
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
a talk called "How the Universe is Queerer Than We Can Suppose," which is a mouthful. But he talks about how if we evolved as the size of molecules and had the same mental facility that we do now, that rocks wouldn't seem impenetrable. You'd be able to walk in between,
Yeah.
molecules and things. Whereas to us, a rock is hard because we evolved at this
Yeah.
scale. Same with like atoms. They're 99.99 whatever percent nothing. And it's just the electron whizzing by. So perception is reality to a certain degree, but a fish may evolve to feel, pressure and the barometric pressure, or the, I guess they could be water pressure more so. And they may have a whole other sense that's like overlaid in their visual cortex, that's color gradients, that shows them, from the left there's some low pressure or low temperature or whatever it may be. It's amazing how different creatures have evolved that, though, or like, how vipers can sense heat or
Yep.
other. Yeah.
So the last thing I want to ask you about today
Yeah.
is something off topic, but topic wise. People may not know this about you, but you're a graphic artist.
Oh yeah.
I left because I wanted to find a Nalda book, because I wanted to show people that, not only did you introduce me to YouTube, but you've been part of the Arkoff family for a while as well, with the drawings that you did for Renee's book. But you're a graphic artist, you're an artist, you've done comic books.
Yep.
Question I often wonder is why haven't you, or have you ever gotten into fish art? Doing more fish stuff, because it runs with your hobby. You would think that's another representation of your hobby to do
Right.
fish art.
To be honest, art used to be for me a very manic thing. I had to do it. Like, it felt like it flowed out of my, I don't know where, not even a conscious urge. It was like having to go to the bathroom. You're like, I can't help it. I just have to. And I would bring a sketch pad with me for 20 years. I'd bring a sketch pad with me everywhere from my teenage years up all through my early adulthood. And when I got hit by lightning, now it's coming up on 5 years in June, something changed in my brain, and it no longer flows. I still have that ability to technically, like, A to B, draw the line, to draw it, but I don't have this, like, I can't explain it, but this, like, ethereal urge, or, like, a lot of artists throughout history, and it sounds, now that I hear it, and my brain has changed in some way since the head trauma, because I had 2 massive brain bleeds, one in the front, one in the back, from that injury when it first happened, and it did quite a bit of damage, actually, to parts of my brain, because I had to relearn to write altogether with my right hand. I lost that ability altogether for 6 months, and was learning with my left hand. And then all of a sudden, one day, somebody called on the phone, and I picked up a pen and took a note, and my hand worked again. So nerves and brain signals are really weird. But part of it was that before that would have been, so when I first started my channel, before that, I did create quite a bit of fish art. And I have painted a lot of fish 10, 15 years ago, a lot of, like, Northwest salmon and fly fishing and mountains and stuff like that. But part of it is that it's this kind of wound that I don't like to open back up, and, like, aquascaping, learning, that kind of stuff, making videos, teaching, if you want to call it that, that to me has kind of replaced that manic energy that was going towards art, where I'd stay up all night and just have to do one more little thing to make the painting right. And I miss it to some degree, or I mean, I miss it a lot, but it's just weird because it's not there anymore. And so I can do it, and I've done some art that's on some of my merch that I do. All that goes to, when I make a donation to Arkoff or to Running River or whatever, that's all from my merch that you see on my YouTube channel. All those shirts on Teespring, I donate that. But all those designs were done after the brain injury. And so they're line art, and I feel like they look okay and everything. But I haven't gotten that, just like, I wouldn't do it for myself anymore. So I haven't done it. But I have done a lot of art for, like, Lucas Brett. All his graphic design I've done. I mean, and there's probably about a dozen YouTube channels or creators where I've designed their merch or their art, and people may not know it. But then on my channel, I'm like barely selling anything that's creative that way. And I don't know what it is, but I hit a roadblock, or I feel like it's not good enough, or it doesn't represent me. When it comes to making something for my own channel. So I don't know what it is. It's partially laziness or an excuse, but
in some ways you have, you still have that creative outlet. It's going towards your aquascaping. When you do aquascape, your Asian blackwater tanks that you did a year or so ago, you still have a creative outlet. It's just not in that, hand type of art. It's more in construction of a tank art.
Yeah, it's almost like I feel like now what is the art to me is playing God or whatever.
Yeah,
You set the pieces in motion, you
yeah,
plan in your head like, okay, I'm going to put this element in the substrate and that's going to help the plants grow and this is going to happen. And then you just take your hands off the wheel and just see what happens. And for
yeah.
some reason that feels a lot more um soothing to my soul, I
Hmm.
guess, is to watch the chaos unfold that I've wrought to
Yeah,
my situation.
yeah,
But, it's a good point, though, in that people do ask about it or ask for it. And so I should just sit down and make myself do it and do some more, do some more fish art. Because I spent 15 years doing illustrations for mycology, botany, and biology, pen and ink and
hmm,
Sumi ink for UW professors and a number of other local universities. Um, but it just feels very procedural is the only way I can put it now. It feels like a surgical task or something rather than just flowing like,
yeah,
oh, I'm getting it out of my system like music or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have no artistic talent, so I don't understand the flowiness of when people.
It's
So
hard
I,
to describe because now I don't have
yeah,
that same feeling, and now I can't put my mind back in
yeah.
that.
I talk to poets and people who write songs, and they say, sometimes I feel like it's not me. It's just something
Right.
coming
That
out of me that I have no control over. So I just write it down because that's what I'm supposed to do. Subconsciously it's there, but it's not like I'm thinking about it. It's just going.
well, and 100% that's how I felt for years, and I had a really hard. I mean, it was not good for living in society that we
Yeah.
live in
Yeah.
that I would blow off other obligations and stay up 32 hours. I mean, it was very manic, to the definition of the word.
Yeah.
Um, and it didn't matter if it made money or not or if anybody liked it. It just felt like it was flowing through me and I was a conduit for it, and I haven't felt that same way about that. I feel that way about storytelling and a little bit about
Mhm.
maybe when I see people get the aha excitement,
Yeah.
but I don't feel that way about art anymore, and it's a bummer. I hope it comes back someday, but you can't explain it. It is really just a weird, almost like a, if you didn't know better, I'd call it like a possession, of the universe or God or
Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, you guys? We've been at it about an hour and 10 almost. So
Yeah.
normally just like to go an hour to, give people a little break during the daytime.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Well, thank you also, by the way, for having me up.
well, I
I know
appreciate it.
it's always a pleasure to chat with you, and always look up to the work you're doing and stuff like that.
And
So
I instead of me writing bad comments during your live stream, saying stuff like you said
I'm
that
late
wrong.
again.
How come you don't? Yeah, late again. I'm always late for people's live streams, and you mispronounce that word. Don't you know? Yeah. So. And of course, it's the greatest word of all is Corridora. I know that's a word
Thank
that you
you.
say all the time. That I
Yes.
hate people saying. That's one of my pet peeves. Don't know why. It's just that and species. Instead of the
Oh, you
the
know what I hate is human. When people say
human.
human beings,
Yeah,
like
human.
they're trying to sound British or something.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
no, stop that.
yeah. We all have our little pet peeves.
Or yeah, or
It's just where it goes.
when people say frustrated or frustrated instead of
Frustrated.
frustrated, I'm like, those are not words. I don't know why we're allowing this. Everybody should be slapping them on the hand and
Yeah,
saying, stop that.
yeah. And it's a word we all say that I learned growing up is irregardless. There's no
Oh,
such
right.
word as
Yeah.
irregardless, even though everybody says it. You look it
Yeah.
up in the dictionary. It's not. There's not. It's regardless. It's not irregardless, but it's
Right.
it's something we all say. Yeah.
There's a few English words where there is not a the word means the opposite of something,
Yeah.
but there's no word for the
Yeah.
affirmative of the
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, everybody. Appreciate you guys coming.
Yeah. Good to see everybody
yeah.
hanging out.
Um,
And I hope what's going on with the center, Doc?
the center. Well, tanks have arrived in China. I mean, from China in Peru.
Lima.
But there was a problem with the manifest in that it was put in my name, even though I told the company in China change it from my name to either Arkoff or our cargo guy there in Peru that we work with, and they didn't. So they've been sitting in the docks since the 4th of May. So we're being charged a dockage fee every day. And so finally today I had to sign a letter that's written, and here's a letter right here that I just actually signed. And it says that I basically take full responsibility if the shipment is wrong, if the shipment comes in damage, if they didn't send the right tanks or enough tanks, that I don't hold that company responsible. And that's the only way they would change the shipping to my name. So we're hoping everything comes okay.
Yeah.
It supposedly takes 18 days for it to come from Lima to Iquitos.
Now, how do they even do that? As to get over the Andes, what happens?
Well, what they do is they take a truck to a river. They put it on a river barge, and the barge comes up river to a city called Nauta, and Nauta is the only city that's connected to Iquitos through a road, and that road is 45-50 miles long. So that's the only road out of Iquitos is to that one. Just to from Iquitos. So from there they truck it up to Iquitos. So I'm hoping I leave on a week from today for Peru.
Oh, okay.
And this has been going on since September.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Almost 9 months this thing has been in the works, and this company has been horrific to deal with.
Well, I wish you the best. I mean,
we wanted to open up the aquarium by the end of July. We hope that's in the works, but who knows? We have Fernando there. He just says just for the name change, Fernando better get some work done today. Better not kill my fish there. Better not overfill the tanks, Fernando. Fernando forgets to turn the water off sometimes when he's filling tanks. So, him and Chris is our resident director's son, and Fernando is his nephew. And they, sometimes they get to be the chismosos. They gossip and forget about things, So who knows? Who knows what's happening there at the research center? But one thing we do have brand new intranet. We broke down and supporting Elon Musk. And
you got the Starlink.
And supposedly it's really, really fast. So
that's awesome.
Before it would be like in the middle of the day, we'd have kilobytes per second of internet speed.
Yeah.
And maybe at night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, we would get maybe 1,000 kilobytes, but never what you would expect. Never, hardly ever be able to do a live stream from there at all. So hopefully, we're gonna
there's Fernando.
Yeah. So hopefully we're gonna set up the mesh routers there. So each room will have the high speed. We'll have it in the auditorium, and so once I get there, we'll set that up. So right now it's wherever. It's only like 5 meters away from the Starlink router itself that you can get the good signal. So
you'll have to get some what do they call it? The relay thing?
We have some there. I bought some a couple years ago, so they're there just waiting. So once I get there, that's one of the first things we'll have to do. So
it's been a long and windy road, but I mean,
Yep.
it's exciting. I mean, you're just getting it ready for me when I finally get down there.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what, that was our biggest complaint by the foreign researchers that would come work and stay at the research center, is the unreliability of internet. And we
Sure.
knew that, we would
Yeah.
tether off our phones, and that's how we did the internet with, and so so you'll get a full tour. The morning that we open, I'll actually live stream the opening events for that. So I'll let everybody know when that is. And once it's open, I'll do some, but I don't want to do a full tour of the aquarium because I want people to show up. I don't want them just to look at the internet. Oh yeah, I see that fish. So we'll do the full thing once it's opened for everybody to see all the exhibits and what we've done. So
very
cool. I appreciate you guys out there because, you Fish Fam and U2 family have been some of the donors for the kids' Christmas and the auction that we had. So, I do appreciate everybody and their support, and Alex's, of course, for what he's done for us. So someday we'll get him there,
I believe in you.
Well, you and my mother used to believe in me. So,
I don't have any kids. I'm not going to have any kids. And so I had to figure out what is my legacy.
Yeah.
And I really want it to be about, encouraging education, encouraging the planet to have the house in order. So
I agree. Yeah.
And I think you're doing that swimmingly with a tight budget. And so it's awesome. Awesome to see.
And with that, I want to thank everybody. Do your water changes, hug your family, be nice to people. That's all we can do in this world, make it a better place. So thank you all. We will hope to see you again soon. Oh, there goes my closing. Yeah.